I'd like to start with the traditional word of greeting, namely shalom. And I know what shalom means, and maybe most people around sitting here also know it. And shalom means not only the absence of war, but also accommodation and goodwill. And it's in this sense that this gathering here today takes place. In the sense of shalom having the meaning of goodwill, I'd like to say a few words and maybe summarize what this meeting will be like as we proceed later on. So I want to tell you specifically about a project that has already been mentioned here, and that's a project that we call, by its acronym, IPSO, I-P-S-O, which is short for International Israeli-Palestinian Science Organization, IPSO. And I'd like to devote a few words to describing this particular endeavor and to maybe taking a few lessons from that. The notion of this IPSO is to have Israeli scientists and Palestinian scientists working together in science. And that in itself is unusual, especially these days, to somehow bring Israelis and Palestinians together, that they should not only speak to one another, but cooperate with one another. And this is something we cherish. With your permission, I will devote a few words to telling you about this project of ours called IPSO. I just told you what IPSO means, and that is an acronym for Israeli-Palestinian Science Organization. And the object of this project is to encourage joint scientific work between Israeli scientists on the one hand and Palestinian scientists on the other. And as everyone knows, especially everyone in this room, it's not common to ascribe a common language to Israelis and Palestinians in general, and certainly in science, the way we think about this. So a few more years ago than I care to remember, but it was roughly 20 years ago that a Palestinian colleague of mine, namely Professor Sari Nusseibeh, who you have just heard, and I began to think of what Israeli scientists and Palestinian scientists could do together if they collaborate. And it is to this end that we started this project, and I wish to say a few words about that. So the project is to find problems that scientists think about that somehow both Israelis and Palestinians consider important, and therefore are willing jointly to explore. And that's exactly what this project of ours, that Professor Nusseibeh on the one hand and myself on the other, began. And I'm very, very grateful to Professor Nusseibeh for joining me on this. And the type of problems that we thought would be of interest to both Israelis and Palestinians were problems like distribution of water in irrigation problems, as is indeed the case today when, for example, the peace treaty that Israel has with Jordan has specifically aligned a problem of distributing water, irrigation water, between Israel and Palestine as one of the problems that IPSO would take up, and indeed it did a few years ago. And it's in this spirit that we thought that, on the one hand, the peaceful nature of IPSO would come to the fore, and on the other, some old problems which the two communities found sometimes disagreements about, that these disagreements could be settled or at least discussed together for the good advantage of both societies. In this context, some thoughts that former students of mine have brought up for discussing, for highlighting the types of cooperation that could be achieved in this capacity. Thank you very much.